Okay. Um, nice. Looks like we're good. Welcome to today's stream, guys. Nope, no on screen. Okay. Yeah, welcome to today's stream. Today's stream might be a bit faster than usual. Um, yeah, but basically today we'll be talking about our additions to Leaf during the past week, and then new stuff in Leaf MVC 4, and then we'll have questions, which are supposed to be like the main thing for today. So questions from you guys um, about design decisions in Leaf. By the way, please let me know if you can actually hear me. Um, I'm trying out a few new stuff today, so I just want to make sure everything is good. Okay. Um, right. Okay, this is a bit messy. I have no idea where anything is. Let me just pop this here. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, today will just be for um, updates to Leaf, and then questions from you guys. That's like the major thing for today. So if you do have um, anything, just pop in the chat. I'll read it. I have the chat open here, um, and then we can move on. But then I sort of compiled a bunch of questions from earlier, so we'll be going off with that. Okay, so yeah, let's just start off with new stuff in Leaf, I guess. Um, yeah, let's just start off with like new stuff in Leaf. I guess the biggest one is um, what we've all been waiting for, and that has to do with um, roles and permissions. So let's just get into that. Okay. So for those of you who haven't already been able to check it out, the roles and permissions feature is available at leafphp.dev. We added this here, sort of highlighting its presence. Um, so you can just click on it and you get right into the documentation, and it's part of Leaf Auth. So installing Leaf Auth would sort of give you everything you need for roles and permissions. So Leaf install auth. Um, Maybe I should just scaffold like a dummy project. Um, that's like a lot more faster than just sort of reading the documentation to you. So um, as usual, leave create. Oh, okay. Leave create auth test. I won't be using Leaf MVC for this one. Just a basic Leaf application. Okay. So we see the auth test. Auth test. There we go. And as usual, I'll open this up in VS Code. Okay, so we have a basic Leaf application here. Nothing fancy, just a default index.php. And we will leave serve port 8080 because I sort of blocked out all of my other application ports. So yeah, we'll go with this one for now. And then okay, I'll just open this up in Chrome. Let's see, move. Sheesh. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this is basically, like default Leaf stuff. So we are just going to add a little bit to this to kind of see how it works. So I don't have to read the documentation to you. So Okay, let's get started. So, as I mentioned on last week's stream, basically this takes very little advantage of your database itself. So basically, you can just set up everything and then leave that all of this lot of caching and stuff. So it doesn't actually have to rely on your database. Um, we'll get into more about that particular design decision later, but that was sort of like the most performance way to get it done, while keeping things simple, like no stressing the system out. So, oh, audio issues. Let me check that out. Okay. Um, let me know if it's better now. Um, okay. Yeah, let it's better now. Cool. Okay. So as I was mentioning, this is like the most performance way to get this done. Of yeah, yeah, probably my microphone. Um, yeah, is it should be better now. I think. Okay. Are we better now? I think we should be good now. Don't know if that's too loud. Okay. Yeah, this should be a lot better. This should be better. Um, just give me a wave if you can hear that, and then we can move on. Nice. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was sort of just trying out different microphones. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay, so back to this. As I mentioned, first things first, you sort of need to be able to define what roles and permissions should be available in your application in the first place. But then I kind of missed one important step, which is installing Leaf. So I will do that now, which and just copy this Leaf install auth. Okay. Thanks, Terry. Okay. I'll just reserve the application and make sure it's still running if nothing is broken. Okay. Um, right. Let me kind of look for one database which I think I sort of okay. Yeah, this one should be fair. Um, so this is one test database that was creating. It has name, email, password. That's pretty much all we need. Notice how there's actually nothing about roles or permissions, anything like that. And that's perfectly fine. Because as I mentioned, Leaf auth, at least with respect to roles and permissions. Okay, I think it should be okay now. Um, uh, Yikes. Sorry about that. I've just kind of given up with the whole microphone business now. I'm just going along with my AirPods, so you probably would not have the best sound, unfortunately. But please bear me for today. Um, okay, so I'll just go back a little bit. Um, yeah. So yeah, all that I did was I added this post route, which is supposed to be our register route. So we'll use this route to create new users, basically. Okay. Um, yeah, that's pretty much all I've done so far. Um, and I mentioned we're not going to be doing any validation because we are just going to trust the data we're getting is good. So we can just jump straight into registration. So that would look something like we get our data from our request, um, get, and then we want the name, we want email and password. This is everything we would want from our request because those are the only important things we want to get from our database. So name, email, password. Um, okay, thanks, Terry. Okay, so we get our data, um, and then we basically, actually, we're not going to validate. Let me get rid of that if. We just check for success. equals auth register data. We can even skip checking for a success because we know it would be a success regardless. So okay, let me just do that. Okay, so if it's a success, then what we want to do now is to get the current user, which we can do a auth user, and then we assign a role to that user using assign. We want to assign the user an admin role. Let's go admin. Okay, and then after that we can response JSON, let's say just throw in the user data. So auth, I think data. Okay, there we go. So I'll pull up Postman and then we can try this out. Okay, so I think our application is on 8080. Just copy that. Never mind. Okay, and then /auth/register. Make sure it's JSON, and then we have this information. So I'm just going to change this here. Okay, so basically this is what we are sending to auth register. Did I save this? Okay, good. And then I'm just going to send that request, and right, no database selected. Right. Okay. So using create roles and all of that doesn't actually save any information in a database, but in order to go with our register and then actually patch up the role to the particular user, of course we have to connect to our database. We can do that using Leaf Auth Connect. I'm just going to copy that. Should be somewhere here. Don't remember how it actually works. Okay, there we go. So this can actually go anywhere because nothing relies on it. I'm using a MySQL database. Don't need to pass that. Don't need to pass any of this. What's actually the port? I don't think I need to pass that either. Okay, so 167.0.0.1. And then the database name. What is the database name? My Leaf DB. Okay. The user is root by default, and there is no password. Okay, I think this should be everything I need to pass in. I'll try that again, and it works. So our new user is registered, and then we get access token, refresh token. That's like the normal authentication stuff. And then we get roles. This is the role I assigned the user. But then Leaf Auth actually allows you to assign multiple roles. So that's why it's an array. And then you have all the permissions that comes with the user. If we go back to our database, we see this here, and then that's Leaf Auth user roles. It's a text field because we sort of wanted to work with every database type, every SQL database type. And so far, it looks like every SQL database type has a text, but not everyone supports the JSON field. So we do a little parsing there internally in Leaf Auth. So that doesn't really hurt performance. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we don't save any roles, we don't save any permissions. So when you take a look in the database, you actually don't see any roles or any permissions table. Everything is just tied directly to the user. Yeah. So that's pretty much how it works. From this point on, we can, let me just create a new route. Would be a get of, actually, maybe home. Like this. And then, I don't know, say if auth user can do something. So this is to check if a user has permission to do something. We use the can. So check if user has a permission. So we are checking if the user can view users. So we have this permission here. So view user, view users, and all of that. Okay. So if the user can, we do that, else you are not allowed to view this page. So I'm just going to copy this access token since we are kind of using Postman, it's supposed to be stateless. Okay, authorization. I think it's supposed to be bearer. And then we drop the whole access token in here. And then we go to home and I think it's a get request. Yeah. Okay. So we run that and what issue are we getting this time? Oh no. That's weird. User returns null when authentication fails. It's not supposed to fail this time because we passed in our user. Oh, that's weird. Okay, let's just make sure everything is being passed in correctly. We have authorization. It's supposed to be. What the heck is going on here? Let me just. Okay, so I'll just try passing that in myself and see if that works. Authorization, and then that's supposed to be a bearer with this information, and that still returns null. Hmm. Let me just response die or something. What's user? That's actually returning null. And I have no idea why that's returning null because we are passing in our bearer token correctly. Huh. That's pretty weird. Should I try this with a session or something and see if this works? Let me try that with a session and see if it works because I don't get why that's not working. Okay, maybe auth login function email password auth login. Just the usual stuff. Okay. This time I'm going to add a little configuration here. Auth config, and that would set session to true. Okay. Okay, looks good. Let's try it out. Let's try it out and see if it works. I have no idea why. Login, username. Okay, that's supposed to be what do I use? I use name or email. It's supposed to be email. Okay. Actually, what user can I use? Let me just pick any random user. Okay. So I'm going to pass this in here. You know what? Let me actually just fill the details in directly so I don't have to. So I'm going to get rid of data and then just pass the data in as an array. So email would be our email, and then the password is password. There we go. Okay. So if success, we return the user data, and if not, we just return invalid credentials. Okay. So auth login. Let's see what happens. Okay. So we get all of that information, but then we are not getting our roles and permissions for some reason. Okay. Okay, but let's go back home. This time we're using sessions. Let's see if that works. And we still kind of get, actually no. I think that's actually working. So auth user, let me auth user data. Let me just pull out the email or something. Yeah, okay. So that's kind of working. Let's check if the user can view user. And that does not work. Let's confirm that we were actually assigned the role. And we can actually see admin is in there. So that's kind of weird. That's actually really weird. Huh, what am I not doing right? So our user can't view this, even though he's an admin. That's weird. Okay. I didn't hope to do any debugging, but let's, I don't know, try to find out why our rows are not being populated. Let's see. So right after logging in, what happens is, actually, let me just search for a login function. Right. So right after login, we create a new user. Thanks. Okay. So we create a new user, which is right here. And when the user is loaded, we grab our permissions, roles, permissions, all of that stuff. And then we kind of compare it to the roles and permissions you set up yourself over here. And then that's how we determine what a user can or can't do. Yeah. Oh right. That's actually true. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I actually messed up. I think I kind of used the wrong email. Ah, yeah, let me switch back. That's what happens when you use test stuff. Okay, so this should work. Let's see. So it's supposed to return true this time. I have to actually log in again. So that's auth login, and okay, that works. Because that was really weird. I was kind of wondering what was going on. But I actually used a wrong user. These were test users I was kind of playing with before. Okay. Um, cool. So we can go back in here and go to home, and we should get through this time. Okay. So basically using these rows and all of that, we can kind of like do stuff like this, check if a user can do something, and that works. We can check if a user has, is it has? Or is actually, sorry. Can check if a user is an admin or any other kind of role. And in this case, the user is an admin. If the user is a user, which should fail, so unauthorized, and all of that. Okay, so that works, but then you can kind of see we are doing this validation by ourselves, which we usually don't want to do. So Leaf Auth has the perfect thing for this use case, middleware. Okay, so it comes with its own middleware, so you don't have to add checks like this. So in this case, we are checking if the user is an admin. So if the user is an admin, we say hello. So we say welcome to the homepage. Otherwise, we want to do something else. So in that case, we can just get rid of this whole condition and then pass in a middleware just like this. Okay. I'm just going to go back to the documentation to find the name of the middleware. I think it's just is, and then we pass in whatever role we want to check for. So in this case, I want to check if the user is an admin. If the user is not an admin, then they should not be able to access that page. So in this case, we should still see welcome to the home page because the user is an admin. But if the user doesn't have the role we're looking for, so I'll just change this to user. So in this case, the user is an admin, not a user. So this should fail. And yeah, so we show a 404 page because technically, if you don't have the roles, then the page kind of doesn't exist for you. Technically, it should be like is it a 403 or something like that? But yeah, a 404 does work. We chose a 404 page mostly for security reasons because usually you would not want to show a page to others. So, like if you tell the user that the user doesn't have permission to access the page, and the user kind of knows, or the person kind of knows that that page actually exists. So I really don't know if that's a major security issue, but a 404 was like, oh, hey, the page doesn't even exist in the first place. So yeah. But of course, you can change that behavior, as I mentioned. Let me just kind of like hide all of this now. Yeah, so to change that behavior, you basically just have to call auth middleware, and then you can change that behavior over here. So you call in the name of the middleware, the auth middleware you want to access. In this case, this is the name, that's the is middleware. And then you pass in what you want to happen if the validation fails. So I can change this to kind of a response JSON. Okay, so in this case, I would get unauthorized instead of the default 404 page. So that's what happens. It's all accessible. You can change that. Okay, so in addition to the is middleware, there is also the can middleware, so you can check if a user can access something. So like if the user can view a user, yeah, spaces are actually valid because it uses the permission names. I mean, for readability, if you want to change that to underscore, you can. But then, yeah, it's valid even with a spacing. So can view user, and then you return that. Okay, so welcome to the home page because I can view user, but if I pass in some kind of permission I don't have access to, then same thing happens. Once again, you can update what the middleware shows. So if you don't want this 404 page, you can change the behavior using auth middleware. So same thing, auth middleware like this, can, and then you return what should happen if the validation fails. So in this case, response, JSON, unauthorized, same thing, same behavior. Yeah. Okay. So kind of in a nutshell, this is pretty much what roles and permissions look like. So I think the major thing here to keep in mind is that you probably wouldn't find your roles and permissions in your database, and that's a bit unusual, but Leaf kind of does everything internally. So you don't have to sort of reload your whole database every time. So when a request comes in here, this actually does nothing. This is for Leaf's internal use. So you don't have to connect your database, check your rows, check your user rows table, like all of that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of saving a little bit of performance here. You do lose some extra performance when you want to, for instance, like pull out all users who are admins. In that case, the query becomes a bit more complicated, but compared to, like usual user operations, it's kind of a fair trade-off. So you gain some performance here, and then you lose some performance there. So in the end, they kind of balances that out. And then this is far less complicated. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I will come to this in a little bit. But then in terms of what you can do with roles and permissions, you have this here, which we saw. Is and is not. So is not is basically the opposite of is. So we saw what is does here. Is not basically does the opposite. So it checks if a user is not something, like doesn't have a role. So it's not user. So in this case, I think we should be able to view this route and we get welcome to the home page. That's because the user is not a user. The current user is an admin. So yeah, it's pretty much just the opposite of that. And then same thing with can and cannot. So those are the opposites. Yeah, they're just there to kind of make things easier for you. So instead of writing something like this, like not user can view something, you just go straight to cannot. So it's just something to make your code more readable. It's not really a big thing, but it's just nice to have. Yeah, we've talked about middleware. Oh, by the way, you can actually pass in multiple roles. So if you want to check if the user has one of the following roles, you can actually pass that in. And then it will be separated by a pipe. So this key, this character here, a pipe. So use that to separate if you have plenty roles you want to check. So in this case, we can check if the user is a user or a guest. In this case, the current user is an admin, so I should not be able to view this page. So this should fail, and I should still get 404, right? So that's pretty much how it works. But if the user has any of these roles, so if I change this to admin, it will check if the user is a user or an admin. So then, since I'm an admin, I still have access to that page. Yeah, so you can pass multiple roles, and the same thing works for permissions. I can do the same thing here. So if I can view users or view user and view users, kind of like this. Once again, spaces are actually allowed. They don't break anything. If you find this weird, you can switch your permissions to either snake case or camel case. Basically, as long as it's a string, it will still work. So whatever you prefer is fine. There is no real, there are no limitations to what you can do here. So that's all up to your preference. Okay, what else do we have here? Middleware, unassigning roles, right? So if you are done using or maybe, I don't know, you want to take away a user's role. By the way, I forgot to mention, I kind of overstated this the last time, but then all permissions are directly tied to roles. So you can't assign a role to a user directly. There's actually no feature to do that in here. So if you want to take away a permission, it might be better to actually like fine tune your permissions in a way you can actually combine roles, because Leaf auth allows you to do that. That's like a much better way to go. So yeah. Anyway, you can unassign a role like this. All right. So I'm just going to go to home. Let me save that. Don't think I did. And okay. So we just run through the we actually let me not return this. Let me just go like that. So we return this, and then we unassign the user from this row. Okay, let's see how that works. So now if I refresh, I no longer have the row there because the user was unassigned. That row was unassigned. So yeah, basically we can also get all of the users' roles. So let me just switch this back to um, let me change this to it's not admin, so I can actually run this. Okay, and then I would reassign that row just so I have permission to do everything else. Okay, there we go. So now if I go back to sadmin and I run this, I have the permission to view that. If you try to assign a role and it already exists on that user, Leaf will just ignore it. So you don't have to check first. You can just sort of dump that in there as many times as you want, because Leaf will do it only once. So yeah, that's just a little nicety. Okay. Right. So I was going to talk about this. You can view all of the users' roles just like this. So I'm just going to dump this in here. Roles. Oops. And then you can do the same thing for permissions as well. So roles and then permissions. And then that would give you all of the users' roles. Okay. I think I have something to fix. So this is supposed to happen only once, but clearly it's not. So I guess that's something to fix. But yeah, oh, that's so weird. Anyway, you still get the permissions here. And if you have multiple rows with different permissions, you actually get a combined version of all of those permissions. So it's supposed to actually look like this. So that's happening here because you have two admin rows. That's not supposed to happen. So yeah, I do have something to fix. But yeah, basically, oh, I missed a comment from Terry. Um, okay. Yeah, I think the documentation pretty much covered everything. I think there was one thing I didn't cover though, because I think that was added after. I don't even remember what function that was, but this was a function to sort of get all of the roles that you defined yourself. So not the roles for the current user, but this whole array. Um, I don't remember what function that was. Maybe roles. I don't know. This might be kind of hard to find. Oh, there we go. Oh wait, so it's just auth rows. Yeah. So if you kind of want to get this array, so there are actually situations where you might want to get all of this. For instance, like sending this to your front end if you have separate um, applications for your front end and all of that. So you can just say auth rows, and then that'll give you everything. So that'll return your whole every role you have with all of its permissions. So um, yeah, so there's that function. I don't think I actually documented that because that was added just before it was published. Um, yeah, okay. So I think I do have one thing to fix though, and that's the roles, how the roles are interacting. You're not supposed to be able to assign the same role twice, but clearly that check isn't is failing for some reason. Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Now to come back to these two functions, these are also new in Leaf Auth. Okay. So the main use of these two functions, auth find is to basically find any user using that user's ID. So in this case, this user ID is 4. Actually, I think I should create a new user for this. So let me just do that. So I can undo here. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think I went too far back. Okay, auth register. I'll change this to user 4. Same password and the post this time. I think I deactivated the route. Um, okay, there we go. Okay, I'll just add a new user here. So this will be user 5. Okay, there we go. Okay, so back in our database, we can find user 5, user ID 5. I'm currently signed in as Michael 2, which is user 4, the user with an ID of 4. But let's just say I'm some kind of admin and I have to create permissions for users who are already signed in. I can, or users who already have accounts. I can just find whichever user I need using auth find. In this case, user 5. Usually that would probably be through something like a table where you can just select a user or something like that. Yeah, so we get the user and then we just user assign some kind of role or permission or something. And then we can, yeah, do exactly this. So this is home. I'm an admin, or the current user is an admin. So I have access to this. And there. So there's actually any function, I think, user data, something like that. I don't really remember what function that was. Um, but then there was a function to sort of get all of the user data. I think it's data. I'm not so sure though. Nah, definitely not data. That's weird. Actually, really. Okay, never mind. Yeah. So as I mentioned, there's something I do have to fix because yeah, you're actually able to assign roles multiple times, but if we check through the permissions, save and refresh, yeah, that's actually happening way too many times. Um, yeah, but you can tell we only have a create user, view user, and then view users. We don't have this permission. Wait, what's happening here? Am I sort of mixing in my own permissions? Huh. I think I do have to kind of fix this right now. Um, yeah, because we are sort of having our permissions being mixed in. Let me echo user. So one fun thing is you can actually echo user, and we get this. So yeah, okay. So I am actually signed in as user 4. Huh, wait. Okay, yeah, that's the correct user. That's actually the correct user. And then in terms of permissions, yeah, something funny is happening. But, oh, right. No. So what's happening here was I forgot to deactivate this. So we are assigning the admin role together with whoever that was. So let me just create a new user. Um, Actually, let me just make this 6 so it matches the user ID and I don't get confused about that. Okay. So this user has 0 permissions and I can go back to assign the user 1 permission, which is the user. So yeah, unfortunately, you'll have to check this for now. So let me just do that. If user is so we are checking if the user is not a user, then we can assign the user that permission. So this is like a quick way to not have that problem we just had if you currently have it. So we check if the user doesn't have that role and then we assign it. Okay. Yeah, so we echo user and this is what we get. We get a user. Why am I guessing my own user? That's kind of weird. Let me change this to user 6, I think, if I'm right. Okay. Why am I suddenly guessing my own user? Huh, that's actually kind of weird. Okay, let me switch back to user number 6 and just response JSON user. Let me try to get the user email. What on earth am I actually even doing? Yeah, I was on the wrong route. Um, okay, so I'll just echo user again, and this time we actually get the right thing. So yeah, there's actually no problem with Leaf. That was me. Okay, so yeah, we actually get the right user this time, and we can check that user's roles or permissions just like this. Actually, we can't echo that. Unfortunately, we can't echo that. We have to have an actual response for that. Okay, so yeah, the user has this role, and we can check the permissions as well. And the user would only have the permissions we gave it or her. So basically, that's how find works. It's used for users that already exist. But if you want to assign a role to a user who doesn't exist, actually not just assigning a role, but if you want to create an account for another user, for instance, if you're an admin in a company and you have to sign a new employee up, you can just use auth create user for, and it works. It does exactly what register does. It's pretty much the same, but then this time it doesn't have anything to do with sessions. So just like what we saw here, it actually won't interfere with your session. So you'll still be logged in. You'll still be able to do everything you're supposed to do. Okay. So we are going to create a user for John Doe. We have our name, email, password. And then we can, so this will actually return the user to us, unlike register. But then this is kind of necessary because we can't use auth user. Auth user only refers to the currently logged in user. So, yeah. So we are just going to user assign admin, and then we return the whole user object. Okay. Actually, let me try to sort of find this function I'm looking for. Auth user, there's a function that actually returns everything the user has. It might be in the documentation. That's get auth info. Okay. Okay, so we are going to use that here, and it's going to be user and get auth info. Okay. So unlike what we saw here with auth user, this one, I think it's actually pretty much the same thing. It just hides some important fields that shouldn't be shown. Yeah, like our password and all of that. Okay, so yeah, we get our John Doe user with the email password, access tokens, and all of that, just in case we need to use them. And then we get the roles that were assigned here, and then permissions. So yeah, so these two new functions are not just for roles and permissions, but then they are a quick way to use them as well. So yeah, that's what you get. I think these are, I think, the only new things in Leaf Auth. So you have those two new functions and then the whole role permission library. Yeah, it's pretty stable, but yeah, you can still see the beta flag here. Hopefully that would be off soon. So we are still kind of testing with real info. Yeah, like today we noticed this is kind of broken for some reason. So I'm going to check that out after the stream. But if you have any other issues, you can just hit me up on Discord or open up a GitHub issue, and it will be fixed pretty soon. Well, that's actually an hour in. I didn't think that would take an hour. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for Auth and everything Auth has to offer. But besides Auth, we've been up to a bunch of other bug fixes. Yeah, I actually don't even remember which fixes I've been up to, but Leaf got a new release. So dynamic optional parameters were showing an empty string, and that's been fixed now. I think that was like the only major update for Leaf this week. Yeah, this was because of our roles and permissions. So middleware can now take in parameters. We've already seen that in action. But yeah, this was the only actual fix for Leaf itself. The rest were pretty much just for Leaf MVC, MVC core, and all of that. So a couple of new things in Leaf MVC, which were actually built for Leaf MVC 4, but then I can sort of put them into Leaf MVC 3 without actually breaking anything. So Leaf MVC 3 also have those updates pretty soon. Okay, so first of all, since Vite is no longer going to come with Leaf MVC 4 by default, as in this library, which is leaves/Vite, but then the whole setup will still be there. But we added a new twist here to our serve command. So PHP leaves serve. The serve command now checks if you have Vite installed, and if you do, it will spin up two servers in one instance. I don't know if I actually broke the code before pushing it out, but that has pretty much been implemented. I don't know why it's blinking. Oh, right. It tries to install all dependencies before starting the server. So if you don't have your dependencies installed, they will try to do that. I have my dependencies installed, so actually I have no idea what it's doing in the background. But yeah, that's something new which should be available soon. So yeah, you no longer have to kind of do your PHP leaf serve and then open up a new terminal. Before you have to kind of open up a new terminal and then run dev if you're using Vite or Tailwind or any other thing. So now you wouldn't have to open up two different servers. Yeah. And if you don't have Vite installed, it will just be a regular PHP server that starts up. So I think that's one major change coming up. Let's see. What else? What's going on here? Not this thing again. How did I even fix it the last time? I think this is supposed to be schema. I think connection, something about connection, ZDB connection. Okay. Yeah, I sort of updated the dependencies right before the stream, so that's how come things are kind of broken again. Don't know if I can show this now. PHP leaf serve. Right, so this all happens if you have Vite installed together with your PHP server, so it just kind of runs them together. Together with a few more performance updates there. Yeah, so that's a serve command, but then a few other commands too have changed. These ones are mostly because of schema files. So if you missed out on it last week, database schema files, where are we? Database schema files are pretty much going to replace our models, migrations, and seeders because we would have everything in one file, just like this. And this file will automatically keep track of all our state updates. So once we make any change to our database, for instance, we add a new column like this, we don't have to create a new file for this. And Leaf schema system will automatically keep track of this somewhere in here. I don't know if this will still work because I was running some changes on this, which may or may not have broken things. So it automatically keeps track of everything that goes on. So you can always just roll back to a previous database state. Yeah. And you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. So you just have one file you're working with. And then same thing works with seeds. You have Faker installed and all of that. Leaf dates and then other helpers. Yeah, so because of that, we got rid of all of the other commands like generate seeder and all of those. And then we added a database drop command to sort of delete a table because database rollbacks would only be for time traveling. So for instance, if you want to roll back to this state of your database, so if I add maybe another new column like this, and then I db migrate. Okay, that's actually kind of expected. But anyway, if I roll back to that, if that had actually succeeded, I would have a new database state, so I could roll back to either state I wanted. Um, yeah, so basically that's the idea. Because of that, we've sort of changed up a bunch of things um, just to make sure that you can still run your commands correctly. Let me go back here. Some of the other commands have also been updated to sort of create your directories and all of those for you, since the directory structure is much lighter. Those was changed here. Yeah, we got rid of actually a lot of commands no longer going to be included by default. So yeah, I think I showed the. Let me try 7 this. I really don't know if it'll work, but yeah, let's try doing that. Okay. So the view engine layer, I think last week this wasn't working, but looks like it's working this time. Let me PHP leaf view. Actually, I don't remember. I think it's config publish. And I can publish view. Did that work? Okay, that did. Okay, let's see if this still works. Oh, that does not work anymore. Okay. Yeah, we'll probably have to look at this. But yeah, view engine layer has also been updated. Again, mostly for performance reasons and then stuff like that. So yeah, basically Leaf is just going to get a lot faster and a lot more usable. Um, these commands have also been fixed. I mean, as of the last time I ran them. So view install React, view install Tailwind, and now you can sort of use these together. So before you had to install React and then come back to install Tailwind. Now you can sort of like bundle all of that into one command. And then it works with React, works with Tailwind, works with Vue. So yeah, you can just sort of scaffold all of these front end stuff a lot easier now. These kind of broke for multiple reasons. React 19 was released not long ago, which Inertia 1 didn't support, so that broke. Then Inertia 2 came out, I think, I don't know if it was this week or last week. So that also kind of broke things. And then the Vite config was also requiring wrong versions, so that also kind of broke. But yeah, for the most part, that's been fixed. I'm going to patch up one more command, and then we can have everything working again. So yeah, that's pretty much the updates with Leaf MVC 4. As I said, a lot of these are going back to Leaf MVC 3, so yeah, you should be able to upgrade without any issues. All of these are sort of like under the hood, so you won't have any breaking changes. Your applications will just be faster with no extra configuration. So yeah, those are pretty much our Leaf MVC updates. I think I kind of like froze up some of my ports when I was trying this concurrent thing. So although the application is done, we still have all of these running. Yeah, perks of testing software. Hi tech. Yeah, thank you. You should try it out pretty soon because it's just getting better. Um, okay. Um, let's see. I don't think I actually updated anything besides. Oh yeah. DB got one little update. So this is just a small change. But if you try to skip missing uniques, if you try to make something unique in Leaf DB, and it couldn't find that unique thing. It sort of threw an error. But this has been changed to actually just skip whatever item that is. So it will skip it instead of throwing an error. So that makes it a lot easier to integrate with other systems. So yeah, I think that's just a really small update, but pretty useful. Um, yeah, I think those are the bulk of issues we had. The rest are usability fixes, so things you wouldn't realize in your day to day. Exceptions for an update. Our Vite plugin, as I mentioned. Um, yeah, basically small, very tiny stuff. Um, yeah, okay. So I think that's pretty much it for the updates. I don't know if you guys have any questions. Um, let's see. We do have a whole list of questions though. I don't know if I'll be able to actually take them all. So I kind of like made a list of other questions I've been seeing around. Yeah, I really don't know if I can actually answer all of them because yeah, my throat is kind of done for tonight. But yeah, let me just try to take a few. I don't know if you guys have any other questions, you can just pop them in the chat and um yeah, but let me just run through these. Focus on minimalism. I don't know how big can I actually make this code. Okay. Um, yeah. So what inspired Leaves focus on being minimal? Actually, I just want. Um, I was inspired a lot by Slim. I don't know if you guys know of Slim PHP. It's actually really popular, but people surprisingly don't know of it. So I actually wonder which people use it since it's so popular. But yeah, Slim is actually really light. Um, yeah, before Leaf, it was pretty much the lightest framework I used, and I really liked it. But then I wanted something as powerful as Laravel. So yeah, I kind of blended both of them. Why not follow Laravel's batches included approach? Yeah, pretty much the same reason. Laravel is really heavy. Laravel has everything, but then for that reason, some things are not simple, and the whole framework is kind of slow in some areas. So Leaf takes the opposite approach, where instead of bundling everything together, you can actually just pick and choose what you want. So kind of the opposite of what Laravel does. Um, let's see. Um, how does Leaf compare to other frameworks in terms of performance? Leaf beats out a lot of other frameworks. Um, yeah, it's. I don't think actually there are a few that do believe in terms of performance, but most of those rely on SWO or some other kind of single-threaded operation. But Leaf in its raw state is way faster than um, most of the other popular PHP frameworks, and um, even Leaf MVC is faster than Laravel and Symfony. Probably not faster than Slim because there's a lot going on in Leaf MVC, but Leaf in its raw form is just really fast. Um, yeah, so I don't know if you guys caught any tweets of mine, but yeah, Leaf actually kind of is very similar to Express.js, and that wasn't intentional. That just kind of happened. Um, yeah, so Express kind of uses the same syntax. Yeah, that was actually not intentional. That just really happened because I wanted something lighter. As I mentioned, I used Slim. Slim has a pretty similar kind of structure. So the router is pretty much the same, and that's where like the main syntax then came from. But it doesn't have all of this extra stuff Slim comes with, so it kind of makes it look a lot like Express. So that's kind of where that came from. Um, Why are some features opt-in? I think I've already answered that. We are kind of doing the opposite of Laravel. So instead of bombarding application with so much at the same time, we rather go the opposite way. So you can add things to your application as it grows. So like the more your application grows, the more stuff you can add. So that way, you only have things you need in your application. Sacrifices to remain lightweight and minimal. Yeah, everything I do is kind of a trade-off. So Leaf is always balancing simplicity, performance, and developer experience. So there are some cases where I have to go with developer experience over performance, but it's kind of like gain some performance here, lose some there. So in the end, it's still pretty fast because I don't only focus on one. I kind of try to balance all of them. Backwards compatibility, basically create a new major version if something breaks. That's what I'm doing with Leaf MVC 4. So yeah, once again, modular approach, same story. Yeah, so the community is actually really big. I sort of ask questions a lot on how people want things to be implemented. And sometimes I just go through Leaf applications I see. So if I see any Leaf application, I try to see what people are doing and see what I can make easier. So yeah, community feedback is big for Leaf. And yeah, the goal for Leaf is just to make it lighter, faster, and a lot more useful for building bigger projects. So yeah, I think I have quickly gone through this as fast as I can. Yeah, you guys can pop in any other questions you might have, but these are pretty much the most common questions I've been seeing online. Yeah, so I think, yeah. Um, the goal was to kind of finish Leaf MVC 4 by the end of the year. I don't know how possible that is anymore. But yeah, as I mentioned, a lot of the things I've sort of worked on for Leaf MVC 4 are going to end up in Leaf MVC 3. So upgrading should not be a problem. So you probably wouldn't notice when things come out. But then schema files and the new view engine, those are going to be Leaf MVC 4 because they actually break things. So yeah. Inertia also released a new version. I don't know if you guys saw this. I was reading the upgrade guide. Doesn't seem like too much work. So I'm going to add this for Leaf MVC's next release. Yeah, it's not that big of an update. Very interesting stuff though. I don't know if you guys have had the time to go through this, but yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool updates for inertia. Yeah. So that's going to be in the next update of Leaf MVC. But yeah, that's what we have. Lots of usability updates under the hood. Once again, no breaking changes. So you actually wouldn't notice anything. You can just continue using Leaf and Leaf MVC just like you always have. And then fix on permissions, roles and permissions. So you can't assign the same role multiple times. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Doesn't look like there are any other questions, and I need to go get away before I develop another headache. So I'm just going to end this here, and I'll see you guys next week. Wait, I think Christmas is actually next week. Yeah. Okay, it's somewhere Wednesday. So Merry Christmas in advance to all of you guys. I'll still be around. always on Discord. You can always just text me on Discord. I would usually be online. Um, yeah. So, catch you guys. And Tech, nice to meet you. If you're not on Discord, you can just join in on the Leaf server. The link is on the Leaf documentation. So, catch you guys.